IVM.
Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach, and today on the hot seat we have Sowmya. She says, why we have certain patterns when we look for our new relationships, or even when dealing in a relationship. How to break that habit pattern. And the second question is, how to identify self-worth. All right. So the most important thing to understand is that the patterns that we have in our life come from the experiences that we've had. You see, there's this thing called the prefrontal cortex, right? This entire prefrontal cortex, that is the part of our brain, is responsible for identifying what kinds of threats exist in the world around us. It is the thinking part of the brain. And the thinking part of the brain exists because we are problem solvers. We pick up experiences from life and then we remember them so that we don't have these experiences again ever. So the whole idea is understanding how you can reprogram those beliefs. You see, you have an experience. That experience, then you add meaning to that experience. This happened because of that. That becomes a belief. And then those beliefs become very, very strongly entrenched in our mind. And then we operate basis those beliefs. Now, a number of beliefs put together form patterns, because patterns are nothing but the choices that we make in our life. You will notice that even in our relationships, we end up dating the same kind of people. We don't like those people, but we still end up dating people like that. There was this funny thing about how women say, I don't want a man like my father, and end up getting exactly a man like their father. Same thing happens with men and mothers and their wives. So it's very interesting how these patterns happen, because you are familiar with that kind of person, and hence your belief systems are ready for that, and hence your patterns are ready for that. So how do you break a pattern? You first challenge that belief system. So you spend time introspecting and figuring out what is that belief system that is so deeply entrenched in you. Then what you do with that belief system, you slowly start dismantling it. You ask a simple question: is there any truth to this? And you keep asking this question over and over and over again, till finally the question presents itself, or the answer presents itself, saying, no, there's absolutely no truth to this. Why do I need to continue in this? And that's when you start slowly deciding that you can break a pattern. The second aspect of breaking a pattern is slowly stretching your comfort zone. All right. What do you mean by stretching your comfort zone? Trying new things. All right. So every time your belief system says maybe you should not be doing this, or it warns you about something, experiment. Try it out. See if it's actually true what the belief system is trying to tell you or not. And you will start seeing a pattern shift. Many of us have belief systems that we are not good enough for these kinds of people, or we are not good enough for this kind of job. Break down the belief pattern. Find out, and then actually jump in with both feet into that job or into that relationship and see what happens. Very often we take life too seriously, but the idea is that you need to experiment with life in order to, grow in that way. So that is the way that I would think about this particular aspect of patterns. How do you identify self-worth? That has absolutely nothing to do with the first question, but I'll still attempt at answering it because it's a very difficult thing to gauge. The way that I look at self-worth is, the more I believe in myself, the more self-worth I have. That means the more things I'm able to do well, the more self-worth I have. Now, I've done lots and lots and lots of podcasts on self-worth, because understanding what something is worth is very critical by the amount of value that thing can generate. So if you're creating value in your life or the life of people around you, you are increasing your self-worth. If you're not adding value to your life or the life of people around you, your self-worth is not increasing. Hence, to do this, very simply, start adding value to people's life. Become valuable. People should want you around. But more importantly, you should want yourself around. And I think that is the best way of thinking about self-worth. So if you want your question to be answered on the next hot seat episode of The Habit Coach, check out the link below, click on it, and give me a nice detailed question so that I have enough information to go on. I'm Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach. And remember, awesome lives, they start with awesome habits. Usually in a podcast, it's me who speaks to you and you who listens. But I've been seeing your comments, and it's time. It's me listening to you. Following the overwhelming success of this podcast, the good folks at IVM Podcast Network have decided to come up with a Kannada adaptation of the show for those who prefer listening to it in that language. do make sure you let your Kannada speaking friends know about this as well. So start these habits and share with us your progress using the hashtag #TheHabitCoach. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Ashdin Doc on Twitter and Instagram. You can find lots more information on my website, awesome180.com, or check out different content on my YouTube channel called AWESOME 180. That's Awesome 180.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Paisa Vaisa, Anupam talks to Vedant Krishnan along with the co-founders of FamPay, Sambhav Jain and Kush Taneja. They discuss financial preparation for teenagers and how to get them started. On the Filter Coffee podcast, Karthik speaks to Gautam Chintamani, discover his journey as a film historian, documentary filmmaker and political author. On Tere Mere Raste, Keshav explores London City through the famous underground tube. On Say No to Drama, Chetna supplies some fresh New Year reminders to keep in sight and keep in mind. And on Hansvani, hear the story Azrael Ki Pukar. It highlights the gratitude we should have for our parents. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on. And you can also check us out on YouTube. You can have a list of all of our shows at ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Bank of Baroda and CoinSwitch Kuber.
Working Monday to Friday glued to your chair making you feel dull? Worry not. Get your 5-minute weekly dose of travel around the world with postcards from nowhere. Join me every Thursday as I explore the strange, obscure, and fascinating parts of the world and bring out facets of travel you may not have thought of before. You can find us on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcast from.